Now we're just going to go back to the normal basis point, right? I don't know if you remember, I said I'm anticipating sales this week on V10S, right? So what's the reason for that, right? Why do I say market is going to sell this week, right? And you can see the market is still dropping. Okay, so now you remember the normal basics of the algo structure. Now I went down to my daily time frame to actually understand what the market is doing, right? So now in this point here, if I clear all these drawings right now, you can see that on the daily time frame, remember, first of all, you have to establish a bias, right? On the daily time frame,
Yeah.
what do we have, right? We have a sweep of let me check if this is recording. Okay, this is recording, right? We have a sweep of this high, right? So we have a clean sweep of this high, right? We have a break of structure, right? It's a market break, or you can call this your TLC sweep, right? This is just like a transactional liquidity sweep, right? So now you have a sweep, you have a break of structure, and then you have your what? Scenario 2 right here, right? Remember your scenario 2 is the structure that's created or before the break, right? Is the structural liquidity created before the break of structure, right? So now you have a protected high, okay, right here. Now on the daily time frame, we have, let's say, a POI here. Now, what does this tell us now? Remember I said once market takes out your C, what do you expect to happen? You expect to have what? Distribution or expansion to where? Your D, right? Which is basically your external liquidity, right? It's like that.
Yes.
A, B, C, D, right? Your D should do what? Come and take out your C, right? You notice that there was one that happened here, right? There was another one that happened. There's a range that happened in this point here, right? Which a lot of
Yeah.
people traded as well. There was a sweep here, there was a break, and there was also another one, which means that sales were happening on the lower time frame in this range, right? But overall, what I was actually expecting was that I was expecting price to come back here, because I remember when price was doing this here, I still knew that price was still going to come back, right? So now price has already come back to our structure, right, on the daily time frame, which means that on the LTF, we want to be looking for sell entries, right? Which I said on V10S that this week or last, I can't remember. I think it's last week I said it that I'm anticipating what sells on this guy, right? Now, if you go down to your lower time, let's go down to the 1 hour time frame, right? What do you see? You can see that what since market took out this guy, market took out this high right from the point I said, so it has been selling all down, right? Which means that market is going to ignore all these POIs you have here, all these things here, all these SBI setups you have here, all this stuff here. This is what's going to happen. Stop loss, stop loss, stop loss. Anybody that is looking for buys here, just going to be taking stupid losses or necessary losses, right? Now, why is that person going to be taking unnecessary losses? Because the person does not understand what is happening, right? That's why I said analysis first before execution, right? You don't just jump into the chart. And that's why I said is meaningless, right? It's meaningless for someone to just come to the charts and just be looking for random SBIs, right? It doesn't work like that, right? Because someone that just comes to the charts and sees something like this and say, okay, price is buying, that means, okay, there's a setup waiting for us here. If price comes here, then that means I should buy from here. What's going to happen is the market is going to trick you, right? Someone's going to come and buy from, let's say, let me use as an example. Let me use here as an example now, right? Let's say someone comes here and wants to buy. What is market going to do? Market is going to trick you that it wants to buy something like this now. Someone will say that, okay, price is going up. All right, let me start stacking up my entries, right? Because the price is going up. Before you know it, price just comes back, boom, takes out your stop loss. Why is it taking out your stop loss? Because you don't understand the basic structure of the market, right? You don't understand how the market is reacting on the higher time frame. What is the market doing? Why is this? So if you can understand what and why something is happening, then you don't have any issue again with trading, right? That's the issue that a lot of traders face, right? They don't really understand what the market is doing, right? Remember, I didn't just say it out of thin air that market is going to just start selling this week. No, I actually have an understanding of what's going to happen, and you can say that what price is still, dropping, and I still expect price to still come down on V10s. That's why I said I'm anticipating what sells. Now, remember I said price has to tell a story. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
with all that,
Yes.
in mind, with price giving us that storyline, right? And we understand what's going to happen on V10S, right? We should take that knowledge and go to the lower time frame to look for executions, right? You don't just come and start looking for execution on the higher time frame like the 4 hour. It doesn't work like that. You have to go down to the lower time frame, right? So now this is the 1 hour time frame. Can we spot any entry here? If we can't spot anything on your 1 hour, you can go down to your 15 minutes, 10 minutes, as long as what your bias is right, then that trade should fall in place. Okay, then that trade should fall in place. I think was this a setup that played out, but this protected high was taken out here, right? But I think this was a setup which I also saw as well. There was a sell entry here. Why? I have a sweep here, I have a break, we have a structural liquidity, then price obviously sold out. This should be some kind of manipulation here that happened at this point, but price sold off on this point here, right? Down, right? Remember I said that what price is just going to be selling on V10S, right? Which means that what we should be looking for what? Sell entries, right? Let's go down to our 10 minutes time frame and let's see what is happening on the market. I remember I said market is going to ignore all the buy zones. Any buy zone that you see from this left-hand side before price action came to take out our structural liquidity on the higher time frame. Market is going to ignore all these buy prices. Anything that you see as a buy SBI here, market is going to ignore it, right? So people that don't have knowledge will be taking losses for some reasons they don't understand, right? So now let's understand and let's see what's happening now. Let's see what's happening in the market, right? So just be patient and you wait for what your setup, right? Be patient and wait for your setup. Don't just jump into conclusion or jump into any setup, right? You be patient and wait for your setup to play. Now, this might not look too clear right here. This might not look too clear, but there was something here as well, right? Market took out the structural liquidity here, right? There's a break structural liquidity here, type 2 setup. It might not be too clear, but that's what we anticipate to happen. Any buy setup that you see is just part of manipulation, right? With your bias in mind, right? This is why I said just be very confident and be very patient, right? With your bias in mind, you see that so far I've not been able to see any clear setup on V10S, right? Any clear setup. So I'm just going to be patient, right? I'm going to be patient and wait for what that setup to come to me. I'm not just going to come and force, and you can see someone that will just come and start drawing. Oh, let me say this is a sweep here. This one is a strike. No, be patient and wait for what a clean SBI to form, right? So once you have that setup in mind, then you're going to be very confident in those kind of trades to take, right? Because number one, this is following your bias. Number one, it is following your analysis, right? Remember I said that everything has to come in place, right? Remember how we found, first of all, we got our bias, first of all, on the daily time frame. Remember I said bias can be gotten from all time frames, right? As far as it's in the higher time frame, right? So the daily time frame, we can see that what we have our sweep break type 2 structural liquidity, which price took out here, and this is the external liquidity, right? So we're anticipating sales, which means on the lower time frame, we want to be looking for what our sell zones, right? And you can see that market has been selling, right? It has been selling since we got that. Market has been selling, right? It has been going down, right? And I still expect market to go down even more. Okay, I expect market to go down even more. So now let's check V10, right? It's just the same analysis over again. What I explained, if you've watched all the videos, right? It's just the same thing I do, right? But I don't really do anything different. The same, just follow the rules, right? Just follow your rules and just wait for your setup to play, right? So now this is the daily time frame on V10, right? This is daily time frame. Now we don't really have much price to show us what is happening right now. So let's move down to the lower time frame. Let's move down to the lower time frame. To understand what is happening. Now let's check. Yeah, I remember was it this chart? I don't remember. I don't know if it's this price or this chart. But I remember I got a buy. Was it in this zone, right? I remember if it was here. I got a buy entry when I had a setup here. I think it was somewhere here when I had a setup right here. So I think I got a buy from this guy here, from this range. Let me mark it out. I got a buy setup from, because I had a sweep here, I had a break, and I had price take out this structural liquidity here. So I think I got a buy setup around somewhere here, right? I got a buy setup around here. But right now, price is bullish, right? Which means that B plus setup. Remember what I told you about B plus setups? B plus setups are setups that are taken without directional bias, but based on what? On trend, right? Because right now we see that what price is bullish, right? So which means that anything we take right now is just going to be a B plus setup, right? If you get a buy, remember I told you I do take B plus setups as well. But B plus setup is if you have the capital to risk on B plus setups, you can risk them, right? Remember I said B plus setups are setups that are taking what? Setups are taking without directional bias, but based on what? Trend, right? I think I saw this setup and I missed it yesterday, and this is a B plus. This is a B plus setup. We have a sweep of this low, break of structure, price coming out, take out this structural liquidity. I saw it, I marked it out, but I missed out this setup, and this is a B plus setup, right? So look at this, right? This is above 50% for sell entries. Yeah, this is above 50% for sell entries, right? POI, you can use your order block or you can use your Quasimodo, which is your QMR, right? I remember what I said about B plus setups. I do take B plus setups as well, right? But one thing about B plus setups is if you have the capital to risk, right? You can risk on them, right? So yeah, B plus is a sweep break, structural liquidity above, right? So you can see how price just came into this guy and just bought, right? Bought to this area here, right? So this is a B plus kind of setup. And there was still another one. I think there was still another setup here as well. Where was the setup? Yeah, so I think this was the setup I saw yesterday. I saw the setup yesterday, but I missed out on this trade, right? I missed out on it. But there's still more opportunities to trade, right? So just one thing about this trading stuff is that I try my best to make sure that I don't complicate the setup, right? I just make my chart simple, right? Clean and simple. If the setup doesn't work out fine, there are still many more opportunities. That's why I keep my trade. I always have one thing that people should have is a trading plan, right? I think I will show you guys how to do that. But first of all, you should just have a very clean setup, right? You don't want to be doing too much on the chart. You don't want to be drawing anything or anyhow, right? You want to just have a very clean setup. Remember what I said now? I was not able to establish what A plus setups on this guy, right? But we can see that from here, we know that if you go down to your 4 hours time frame, you can see that currently, right? The current trend on this guy, right? The current trend on this guy, the market is bullish, right? Market is buying on this guy, which means that anything you pick right now, if you want to trade this kind of market, you are trading what you call a B plus buy market, right? Which is basically taking trades based on trend, right? Is it taking trades based on trend, right? And you can risk on a setup like this. That's if you have the capital to risk on them, right? And yesterday I was able to spot this yesterday, but I didn't take the setup, right? But I spotted it, I didn't take it, right? I saw the sweep here, break of structure, structural liquidity. Remember I said we verify your structural liquidity for your Fibonacci, right? You have a Fibonacci from this low to the high, right? This is below the 50%, which means this is a valid buy entry, right? So you can use your POI, your order block as your POI right here. So market just came here, distribution to the upside, right? Distribution to the upside. Okay. So now, which means that any other setup which I see and I'm going to take is going to be what? A B plus setup. Okay. Now let's see what if we can see another setup right here. Right. Everything is basically just the SBR, right? You should sweep, break your structure and your structural liquidity. Now let's verify this structural liquidity right now to see if this is a valid SLQ. Okay. So price did this, broke back into the range. Okay. Right. Please hope you guys are following, please. Hope you guys are following, and we'll soon start. You'll start asking questions now, but just hold on. Just hold on. I want to just show you guys one or two, right? Right. Two. Right. So yeah, the reason why I'm looking for buyer setups here, number one reason is because of what we have kind of like a B plus buy setup, right? B plus buy setup, right? And these are setups. Remember what I said? These are setups, taking based on trend, right? These are not A plus setups, right? These are setups taking based on what? On trend. Okay, setups taking based on trend, which means that these are 50-50 setups, right? But are taking based on what? Trend. And you can see how I was able to spot this initial entry right here, but I didn't take this entry, right? So now this is the second setup which I'm seeing right now on this guy. And it's a B plus setup, right? So B plus setups, they are not A plus entries, right? But these are setups that can be taken with what you call risk. right? If you have the capital to risk on this kind of setups, you can take, okay? So now we'll go to other pairs, but let me just check what is happening right now. We'll go to other pairs and analyze. We're going to do a full analysis on all pairs, right? So actually understand what we have going on, okay? Now, let me see. So yeah, this is something that can happen, right? This is something that can happen. It's something that can happen. This is another anticipation again, right? So if you decide to risk on a pair like this, you can decide to risk, right? But once price comes into this zone, I'm going to be watching, right? Remember I said for B plus setups, you take them what based on confirmation, right? Confirmation entry. You can see that this former entry here, we just had a weak rejection and bullish engulfing to the upside, right? So you take them with confirmation entries quickly, right? So please, you guys can ask questions and before we proceed. Please ask your question before we proceed. You can ask questions, right? You can ask questions. Guys, can you hear me? If you don't have any questions, we can proceed. All right? Any questions, guys? All right, let's proceed now. We'll go to the next pair now. So remember I said we are doing a top-down analysis on all pairs, right? We're doing top-down analysis on what all pairs, right? So basically understand the direction of the markets, right? This coming week and what do you anticipate this week, right? So before any week starts, I like to do my analysis basically so that I have my setup, right? I have my setup. I don't just every single day just come and draw any setup, right? I like to basically have my plan for the starting of the week so that my setup and everything is not compromised, okay? Now, remember I said for this guy, we are anticipating what B plus buys, right? But now let's go to V25S and let's see what's happening, right? So it's always top-down analysis, always top-down analysis, always top-down analysis, right? Always top-down analysis, right? So now this is V25S, right? V25S is what we have on V25S. Now, previously, we can see that we have a sweep of this high break of structure. But now, why do I not think that this bias is going to hold, right? Why don't I think that this bias is going to hold? Number one reason is because, first of all, we have what? Price taking out the protected high, right? Price took out the protected high, which means that what this bias is not going to hold, right? Remember that what if you have a structural liquidity, or if you have a setup, right, or you buy SBI, or you set up any SBI, right? You have a sweep, you have a break. Remember that what this low is your protected low, right? For buy setups, this low should not be taken out. Now, why shouldn't this low be taken out? Because of what you have, what this structural liquidity protecting this low, right? That's why it's called a protected low. This low is protected by what? Your structural liquidity. Meaning that what? Once price takes out your structural liquidity, right? You should not have this low taken out. If this low is taken out, that means that this setup is going to fail. Okay? That means this setup is going to fail. Because I noticed that some traders, once price take out their low, right? Some of them like to, if price starts pulling back, they'll say, okay, now it's going to buy. It's not the right thing to do, even though its setup still holds, right? This low should not be taken out. Okay, this low should not be taken out. This is a protected low, right? So once price takes out this guy, what do you expect to happen? You expect to have what? A distribution or what? Expansion, right? So now look at this guy, for example, right? We have a sweep. Okay, let me use this guy's example, right? We have a sweep of this high, we have a break of structure, and we have what you call a structural liquidity here, or type 1 structure. Okay, we have a type 1 structure here. So what happened was that price took out this low. Now, on a normal hand, we should know that what, okay, price should do something like this and go to the downside, which means that we're going to have what? A sell bias. But now what do you see happening? You can see that what price is taking out what? The protected, or price has taken out what? The protected high. I don't know if you guys are following. Price has taken out what? The protected high, meaning that what? This setup what is invalid, right? This bias is invalid, right? This bias is what? Invalid, and what? Price is what? Having bullish returns, which means that any setup you are taking right now is what you call a B plus setup, right? Because now if you look back in price action, you can see that what we have what? A sweep of this low, break of market structure, and what happened, right? You can see that what price came out and took out what? This structural liquidity. Can you see what happened here? Now remember I told you guys that once price takes out your structural liquidity, it doesn't have to take out your POI. Once price takes out your C, right? Remember that your C is your structural liquidity. Once price takes out your C, expect what? Distribution immediately, or expect expansion. It doesn't need to tap your POI, because this is what your protected, this is what is protected, this is what is protecting your protected low, right? So once price takes out this guy, expect an expansion, right? So you can see that once price took out this guy, boom, market moves to the upside. Okay, so this is how you get bias, right? But right now, consider what we have B plus setup. That B plus, because why? Prices were bullish. Remember that for our V10S, remember that we have what? A plus cells. You guys should understand the difference between B plus and A plus. Okay, this is what we call an A plus setup. Why is it an A plus setup? Because of what we have established, what a bias here, right? If you go down to your daily time frame, we have established a bias. Please try and differentiate these two things, right? We have a bias for a sell on this guy because we are anticipating that what price should do what take out this guy here. Okay, so this is what you call B plus sales. So this is what you call A plus setup, right? But for B plus setups, I want you guys to know the difference. B plus setups are setups taken based on trend, right? If market is selling, or if you open the price action, right? If you just open a random chart without, and you try and do your analysis and you don't have a setup there, then you're going to take what you call a B plus setup, right? Which is based on trend. Okay, a setup based on what trend, right? So now this V100S, that V100S. So just try and make your analysis to be simple, right? Do not overcomplicate things. Just stick to the rules, right, of the SBI, which is basically your sweep, your break, and inducements. Know when to separate those setups, right? Know when to separate a setup from another setup. You don't just draw anything and just say, okay, I'm going to buy from here or I'm going to sell from here. You should know how to differentiate what setups from different setups, okay? Right? Okay. Now, let's see what's happening. Let's see what's happening. Okay, please, can you guys ask your questions now? Because I want this to be an interactive session, okay? If there's any questions or something we should check out, any questions or anything we should check out, let's know. And yeah, this recording is available for those that missed out from the entry point. Is available as well, right? It's available as well. So now you notice that what V100 is what happened, or this is V100, right? What happened was that price took out what this guy here, price took out the structural liquidity here, or a type 2 setup, right? Price took out the structural liquidity, giving us what a protected high. I don't know if I called, I don't know, I think I called this, I don't know if I called this out. I was anticipating what sells on this guy because I saw price taking out this guy and price started selling, which means that price was going to come and take out here, right? Which means that we have established our range, right? Everything is basically just range, establishing ranges, which means that what anything you take right here in this range is what sell setups, right? Now, with that in mind, you should understand that what anything that is here is going to be invalidated, right? If you have a buy setups in this range, let's say you have an SBI or a buy setup in this range, you have a buy setup here, a setup like this is going to be what invalidated, right? This is why some of you are still taking what unnecessary losses, right? Because you're not able to identify ranges, right? You're not able to identify range and identify what is happening on the higher time frame to establish what direction, right? If you have a setup like this, right, I can see that someone will take a setup and expect what price to come and do something like this. Before you know, price is going to manipulate you, tap your PY, go up small, stop loss hits. Why? Because of what? There's a range happening from here, right? We have a sweep, break of structure, type 2 structure here, right? Type 2 structure, this is above this guy, so it's valid, right? So price is going to come and sell from here to here, which means that on your lower time frame, as soon as price did something like this on your lower time frame, what are you going to be anticipating? Sell setups, right? It can be on your 15 minutes, it can be on your 10 minutes, it can be on your 5 minutes, whatever. Sell setups, okay? I think I took a sell setup this week on this guy, right? Remember, I don't just take anyhow setups, right? I have to let price tell a story, okay? The basic thing about the market structure or the advanced market structure is letting price tell you a story, okay? It's letting price tell you a story, right? So now what do you see right here? What do you see right here? Yeah, we have a sweep of this guy, we have a break of structure. What do we have here? This is a type 2 sell setup. First setup that happened right here. This is a first this is a first setup I have here. I think this is a setup I took. I can't remember if this is a setup I took, right? But market is still going to present you more opportunities. Even though you missed that initial setup, they're still going to be looking for what your sell SBIs to present for you. Okay. Now let's see what's going to happen on the charts. So this is why I said once you have your setup or you have your, once you have your bias, then all you're going to do is just wait for your setups to play out. It's just going to be easy. You're not just going to draw anything on the chart, right? And I think that that's the problem some traders are still facing, right? Is being able to understand and how to establish bias in the market, right? That's still an issue, right? Is there a setup here? Let me see if there's a setup here. Hmm. Is there a setup here? Sweep. So I don't know if you guys remember that I posted something here. If you guys saw my Twitter, I posted a setup here, right? So now this was a setup, right? I had a sweep, I had a break, and I had something like this here, right? This was a setup, and I also had another initial setup here, right? There was also an initial setup here. There was also another sell entry here as well. You can see where's that sell setup here? Yeah, it was a sweep of this high right here. Price took out this sweep, right? Price broke structure, right? I think this was the first sell as well, right? Second sell here. Remember, I'm only going to be taking what? Sell setups. Why am I going to be taking sell setups? Because of what? I established what? My bias, right? Remember that I'm going to be looking for sell setups to what happens. This low is taken out, right? Remember that we have a structural liquidity low here, right? And you can see that what price took out this low eventually, which means that what in this range, I was able to have at least 4 sell setups here, right? 4 sell setups from this range to this range. From this range to this range, I was able to get at least 4 setups. The setups are going to present itself here, but you need to be patient. Okay, you need to be patient. You don't need to take anyhow setups. And another thing is that any buy setup you have here is going to fail. Why? Because price is going to respect your range that you have here, which is your sweep, your break, your type 2 right here. This price has taken this guy out. Okay? This guy out. So now guys, so please, any questions? Any questions? Any questions, guys? So that let's look at something. Any setup? Let's look any question or any setup we should look at. Please, who is that? Mute your mic, please. Who is that? Any questions, guys? You guys can answer questions. Okay, who's that? Any questions? Okay, okay. I don't think there's any questions so far. All right. So yeah, that's basically what happened this week, or how I was able to catch some setups on V100. This was a setup I caught on V100. That was last week, right? Which I just explained how I got the V100 sell setup, right? That was how I got that V100 sell setup. Now let's check for another one before the session ends, right? So you can see that basically it's still the same thing, which you understand here. It's basically understanding how to trade from the higher time frame and how to establish your range on the lower time frame, right? It's still the same thing over and over and over again. There's nothing special here. It's just basically following the rules which you have been taught so far. It's basically following those rules and trading those setups in alignment with your setup, right? It's trading in alignment with your setup, okay? It's basically the same thing over and over and over again, right? Over and over and over again. Now, if you guys can see clearly, you can see that there's a sweep of this high, there's a break of structure, and what you see happen right here, there's a structural liquidity, right? Which was a type 1 sell setup right here. This is a protected high, okay? Mean that from this range, we have sell setup from this range to this range, okay? So now let's go down to the lower time frame to see if we have a setup, right? So basically establish that range on the higher time frame, right? Remember I said it's basically finding a setup in another setup, right? That's what you call A plus setup, finding a setup in another setup, okay? Here, okay? Let's go down to see if there's a setup here. Yes, and also this previous week as well, I was looking for a sell entry here, right? I was looking for an entry here, which price missed out on this entry, right? So if price came up to this point and came to our entry right here, would have had a clean distribution to the LTF, right, would have had what a clean distribution to the LTF, right? And now you should understand the basis for this setup, right? I didn't just come and draw any random thing now. What do I have? Why do I have this bias or why do I have this setup? I remember last week when I was it last week or last 2 weeks? I can't remember when this was happening. I remember that I had a setup here, right? But yes, this is the setup that price missed out on me, right? Now, what happened? I established what a range on that 1 hour time frame. Then I established what I have a sweep, I have a break of structure, and I have what a type setup. So I was anticipating that price should come up to this point, right? Once price come and take out this my guy, I should sell to where this low, right? In mind of me knowing that what price is going to come out and take out what this low. Price is going to come out and take out this low. Okay, you can see that price still took out this low, right? So this was the setup I initially missed, right? So after I missed out this initial setup, there was also another setup here. I don't know if there was another setup here, right? I don't think there was another setup here. Right? I think this was just, but I didn't take this setup. Why didn't I take this setup, right? Because this low was already taken out, right? This low was taken out. Now, before, remember that I have a range, right? So now I have a sweep of this high, I have a break of structure, and I have what you call a type 1 setup here. But the reason for me not taking this type 1 setup was why? Because price has already taken out this low. Remember that this my low is my 1 hour range, right? Which I established here, right? Please follow, please pay attention. Please pay attention. Now, you'll know that this is my 1 hour time frame, right? And I have a setup here, which is a sweep of this break of structure, and I have a type 1 setup, right? So price took out this structural liquidity, meaning that what price should come and do what? Take out this low. Okay, take out this structural liquidity low, right? So now in this range, what do I want to be doing, right? I want to be looking for setups inside this range, right? Remember what I said? Price should form a setup in another setup. That's what you call a plus setup. This is how I spot my entries, okay? So now, if you go down to the 5 minutes time frame, first initial entry missed, okay? This was the first initial entry on V75S, right? First initial entry was missed up here, right? So this was the second entry which I had. But the reason why I didn't take this setup, why? Because of what? Price has already was taken out what? My protected low. Okay, let's say price didn't take out this low and price still came back here. I would have sold from this place down to downside, but price took out this low. Okay, price took out this low. This is why I didn't take a setup here. Okay, right? So yeah, basically that's what I have for this week. Okay. So basically what I want you guys to do is basically analyze the chart. So this setup, this video is going to be sent out. Going to be sent out so you can watch it as well. So it's basically the same thing which I always explain, right? It's basically understanding ranges and understanding how to apply them in the market, right? Once you establish a range on the higher time frame, you should be able to what, go down to your lower time frame and get a setup from that range, right? Because market is always going to create what you call ranges in the markets, right? There's always going to be ranges in the markets. But you as a trader, what you should be able to do is be able to identify those ranges and trade them, right? You should be able to identify what ranges and trade those ranges. Okay. Now let's check step 400. So I just want to check all the setups, right? Just want to check all the setups. Yep. So far, no one has any questions so far. I don't know if anyone has any questions because I've asked previously and I don't think anyone has a setup. So, um, yeah. Let's check the 1 hour time frame.
reason for me not taking this time once it was why? Because friends have been taking on sleep. Remember that my low is my 1 hour reach, right? Like one set of but the reason for me not taking this time once it was why? Because friends have been taking on sleep. Remember that my low is my 1 hour reach, right? People are saying that she's at home. Why did you go to church?